You know, we've all got blind spots. I do. But why BS? Why BS your business, your career, your family? And why BS your life? It starts with asking the question. But it's really about living it. And that is what this podcast is all about. This is YBS, Your Blind Spot with Tanner Gears.
But I think it's just about them opening up and feeling comfortable to do so.
Authenticity is key.
Word. Well, so tell me a little bit about what you're working on right now. Is you're still, in the process of launching your program for mental health?
Yeah, well, yeah, more or less. So that's actually kind of in soft launch right now. So there's this mental health based curriculum called Changing Minds.
Right.
And it combines improv, lecture, group discussion, storytelling. And so far I've done it in fifth grade, middle school, high school, and college. And the goal is to get it all the way down to preschool and to get it all the way through grad school and corporate. And, we have 5 modules right now, but the goal is to, add another probably 10 throughout the next few years and, kind of mix it up with some public health and some leadership stuff as well. But right now it's strictly mental health, like coping skills, suicide prevention, just the basics, or, living with a mental health condition. So that's, that's the thing that's in soft launch right now. And then I have a book that is in pre-order right now. And it's our second in the series, the I'm Possible Project series. And this one is called Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible. And it's really kind of like a grittier chicken soup for the soul. And it's like, it's 50 stories, people overcoming and, where they were, where, what happened and what they learned in the aftermath. And this particular one is all on mental illness and mental health. And so we have schizophrenia, depression, postpartum, obsessive compulsive disorder, you name it, it's in there. And there's some really, really interesting things that I didn't know. Cause I would say I'm an innovator and expert in the field, but there's always something to learn. And I even wrote a short one myself, and it's about my depression. And I, kind of in a more creative way rather than sort of like a short memoir style. It's I call my depression, I name it Dwayne, and I give him some like human-like qualities, and he's being a dick and he's cajoling and we're talking back and forth, and then I explain to the reader, this is what's going on and this is why he's being such a dick, because I haven't been taking care of myself or him, and we stopped listening to the same music. I haven't been feeding him well. We're not taking walks regularly. And then it's a little back and forth, and then it's back to the reader. And then towards the end, it's like, well, how do we fix this? And so it's like, well, we go to couples counseling like we did last time. And
okay, let me stop you right there, Josh, sure. Because we gotta. I hit record already, and so this is just too. What are you talking about? This is just too good to not be including, because so. Everybody, Joshua, ladies and gentlemen. So, and I'm sure you prefer Josh, right?
Yeah, man. It's, it depends on if I'm in trouble or if, my wife in public calls me Joshua because she thinks it sounds cooler and more sophisticated. So
it's totally more distinguished. It does give you that little bit of silver hair around the ear kind of feel.
Yeah. That's exactly what I need. So more silver hair coming around my ears and out of my ears. That's what I want.
Well, my wife, she's older than me, and she loves to point out, anytime I get a white hair, and I'm like, that's not white. That's just really blonde.
That is exactly what I say, and I still haven't gotten any on my head, but I there was like one on my hand and one on my arm, and I'm like, shit, man, what's happening in my life? I'm 33. This is not supposed to be happening.
Okay, so we're about the same. Yeah, I'm 34 and she's 37. And is your wife younger than you?
She is slightly older than I, not much, and I won't divulge because she would kick my ass. So I'll keep it at that.
We'll go slightly older than 33, whatever that means. And I'm really excited to have you on, and I had to interrupt you because you're just dropping some insanely awesome and vulnerable information about mental health and how you've overcome that, and like personal develop. I would imagine that it's a daily thing. It's something that you got to stay focused on and remain diligent about. And when you don't, you slip. And when you slip, you might fall, and falling hurts. So tell us a little bit about yourself really quick, and then let's dive into it.
Yeah, man. Sure. So I'll try to be as brief as possible because I got a mouth on me. I can talk.
Right.
I grew up in Jersey. Lived in New York City for 12 years. I'm in LA as of like 16 months ago. And New York was really escaping from home, escaping kind of from relatively abusive kind of home life, more from my father. And so I escaped to be a professional actor. And I did that pretty well for, 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And
that was going down in New York?
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And, doing some regional stuff, some off-Broadway stuff in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Voiceover. Actually got towards the end of my formal show business career, I got commissioned to write a few musicals. I wrote a couple plays. All got produced, which is cool. And then at age 25, kind of towards the end of my show business career, my dad was 60 and I was 25, as I said, and he and my mom were breaking up. They were together for 25, 20, something like that, 30 years, and unhappy for 29 and 364 days. So,
sure.
So that wasn't good. And my father, who was this gruff character, really turned inward on himself, and he took his life. And there's a history of that in my family. Unbeknownst to my dad, my mom told me this when I was 12 or so, and my sister was 13, that his father, my grandfather, took his life when my dad was 17, and my dad was super ashamed of it, never wanted to talk about it. And so, which means he never really dealt with it. And so when my father died, even though I didn't really have good context, didn't understand anything about coping or hope or healing, I knew that I wanted to speak about it a little bit. So I wrote this one-person show as kind of a creative response. It was like, kind of the love child of stand-up comedy and traditional theater. So I play like 16 some odd characters and sing a little bit. And it's my story, intermixed with my dad's and our relationship growing up, going into show business, butting heads, being the nicest kid in the real world and the baddest kid in church.
Yeah.
And which is a really fun distinction, by the way. Not really. So I got a chance to do that. I produced it in New York City in 2010, like a year and change after he died. And then between that, did really well, got good reviews, et cetera, got invited to do it out of town. My professional life was taking off. My personal life was taking a nosedive. Dad was gone. Mom had more or less sued me and my brother and sister for my dad's inheritance, and she had always been sort of the normal parent or whatever. And girlfriend of 6 years decided it was time to go as well. And I wasn't working as much. And beginning of 2011, I started thinking about suicide weekly, daily, hourly, by the minute, until around middle of February, I was hanging out of my 4th floor window ready to jump in Manhattan, New York City. And long story short, thankfully, something popped into my head and said, I don't think you want to die. I just don't think you want to feel like this anymore. And I ended up getting help first from my mom, oddly enough, but it worked. And then through counseling, I was back in school late, so I went to my college counseling center and, continued to get help, continued to research, realized I wanted to be in service of others to feel whole again. So I changed, I flipped the script of my life and career. And I took that one-person show and condensed it and got training and put some education to it and got invited to do it at Baruch College, and some student got help at the end. And I thought, well, if I had to go through all I went through to help this one kid, it was worth it, and want to prevent other people from suffering. So that kind of launched my speaking career. And there's been, I've been to, 200 some odd locations in 4 countries at this point, pushing towards maybe 100,000 people or something like that. And then there's books involved, because people tell me their stories afterward, and I really wanted to give them a platform to do that, where they wanted to help and kind of contribute in a different way. And I've got some marketing in my background, so we did that. I also put out a memoir that was based on the show and went a little deeper than that. And the mental health thing, the depression, it's something I'm managing on a regular basis. Sometimes I mess up or not mess up, but maybe get a little lazy or forget or whatever. And then I pay for it a little bit, but I've got the coping skills where I'm not going to think about suicide or anything like that. But, I'm able to rebound a little quicker than I would have like 6 years ago, because I live with depression and probably a few other things, which I'm working on and going to get evaluated. But, I'm 33, man, and it's an ongoing thing, but it's good work. It's even if if it's something like kidney disease or any sort of physical condition. I mean, it's you got to manage that too on the daily, right? So I got to do that with my head, and it's a constant refinement process. And
okay.
I'm
gonna have to just stop you, man, because that's like, whoa, a whole lot to unpack there. I'm like, okay, I've got about 18 different directions I can go. And what I love, the 30,000 foot view of what you just said, I think, is that we all, not, I don't want to say like all, because I'm sure there's like enlightened beings that are not listening to this podcast right now, but probably most of us listening and those of us on the call talking right now, are dealing with these issues, mental, physical, what have you. And 100% we can BS ourselves about those issues and let them hold us down. But a 30,000 foot view is that we've got all this stuff going on operating in the background that's really kind of oppressing us. But, putting that into action, putting ourselves into action and putting that other crap aside, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I mean, you're talking about books. You're allowing people to collect their voice and publish multiple books. You've got these speaking events, and you're touching thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So, you're definitely putting the BS, you're not BSing yourself and putting that behind you, but it's still something that we deal with on a regular basis. Like my blindness, I deal with that on a daily basis. And, I can get caught up in the fact that I can't drag and drop images or, crop stuff or put a filter on and be, try to be a celebrity on Instagram or whatever. Or I can just focus on what I can do. And I think what you are doing is really, putting your personal expertise and experience on display to support mental health. It's something that's so important. So that I wanted to say that really quick. And then we have a lot of things in common that you don't even know about, which, I was smiling when you were saying a lot of that stuff because you're a writer and creative writing has been a part of your life. And I think a fundamental output or channel for you to deal with the mental health issues. When I was going through school originally, after I lost my sight, I really wanted to study finance, and I realized, like, if I've got to get someone to read these financial statements and analyze this and all this other crap, then I'm probably not going to be able to do it myself. And so I took a public speaking class and a creative writing class, and those courses changed my life. It helped me speaking and writing, helped me deal with so many things that I was going on with anger and depression and just anxiety, substance abuse. And so you've been writing for a long time. When did you start picking up the pen and realize, like, hey, it's not about just being good about it, but just, being good about it in that it makes you feel good?
Yeah. Well, I probably around age 21, 22, I started writing, and I sucked at it. I was really bad.
Whoa. You put something out on production that was picked up in New York and Philadelphia, and you starred in it, and you sucked at writing. So you mean you have to put pen to paper in order to get better?
Yeah. Yes, hell yeah, man.
That's an interesting concept. I was just.
Yeah, well, I know it's so foreign. What overnight success? What everybody knows what that is.
Right.
No, I'm a 30-year overnight success. Thank you very much.
Sure.
But yeah, man. It's so funny. Like I didn't even know that the writing piece was so good for me and good for people in general, like expressing yourself, tapping into creativity, telling a story, and people can tell stories via interpretive dance or macaroni necklace or something like
Sure,
that.
right.
My choice is writing, and 22 I was writing this awful screenplay that was somewhat loosely based on my life, and I ended up putting it down. I submitted it. Nobody liked it, and and then I picked up the pen again a couple years later, right around when my parents were going through this divorce, and I felt like that was somewhat helpful in retrospect. And then after my dad passed away, I wrote this autobiographical show, and
right. What was it titled?
It's still running. It's still going. I
Wow.
still do it. Originally, it was called The Gospel According to Josh, but
Yep.
people got the wrong idea about it.
Right.
Definitely tongue in cheek. And
Sure.
now it's called Kicking My Blue Jeans in the Butt. And jeans, of course, is the DNA genes, and not
Sure.
your neighborhood friendly Levi's. But looking back, that piece in and of itself, and I want to say something about writing and consistency, but that piece in and of itself, it was part of my healing without knowing about it, because I had to learn about my father to be able to write him, to write that character, and to be able to play him, and so because I was very angry, very confused, holding a grudge, and that stuff didn't go away right away, but looking back, it was definitely like creative expression and finding my voice and saying what I needed to say, and then having people kind of relate to it, whether they related to it or not, whether I ended up putting it out or not. That was really, really helpful in the aftermath, and something that I don't recommend that people produce it, survivors of suicide loss specifically, but I do feel that if they have the capacity to do it in sort of a therapeutic setting, I'm sort of a unicorn or a different kind of a beast, I think. But if you can do that in a safe setting, it could be very, very helpful. And then as far as the writing, man, like I haven't been as consistent lately just because of some life things and taking on other projects, but I'm getting back to it with some other stuff. But I think 95% of what I write is crap, and then the 5% is gold. And so you got to be willing to be consistent if you're gonna do anything like that. Create on a creative level. You got to be willing to put your ego aside a little bit and say this sucks. But or you have the consistency of, I know I'm going to write 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, and maybe like you got nothing for 2 hours and 50 minutes, but the last 10 minutes you're cooking, and that's okay. That's okay. Consistency is king or queen.
Well, I mean, and even if you're betting, 5% out of 100, like you then just write a lot, and then you've got a lot of that 5% gold. I mean, writing is totally a skill. It's a window to the soul. I think that writing is different styles of writing are liked by overlapping demographics of people. So there's a lot of different people who like, murder mysteries, and there's a lot of different people who like romantic novels, and then there's a lot of different people who like business and leadership and motivation books, and yet I still think that some of those demographics overlap one another. So but writing and developing that voice, it is so therapeutic. It is so healing. When I had committed to starting to do more journaling to tap into that creativity, at first I was just like, what the fuck do I write about? And then I just started writing like, oh, earlier today I went and got something to eat, and then I cooked it. And then I did that for like 2 or 3 days, but doing it helped me come to the point where it was like, oh, maybe I can write about my thoughts or reflection, or what this experience did to me. What kind of insight does it provide, and how am I learning and operating with this knowledge and experience going forward? And so, well, what is it? That's the development of voice that only can happen through consistent practice. So when you were talking at the beginning, and I had to stop you about, it was Damien? Dwayne. So tell me about Dwayne. Like, obviously there's some overlap there with Dwayne and the creative writing process, and you just kind of constructing this avatar who is, what I envision, this voice inside your head. And Silence is definitely a motherfucker because people like Dwayne are popping up. So tell us about how you came to Dwayne and what that's done for you.
So, Dwayne, interesting character. And for point of reference, I don't really in real life call him or it Dwayne, but it's to benefit other people. So, for a little context, I have this book series that's called the I'm Possible Project. It's under the umbrella of my company with the same name. And it's getting other people to tell their stories in short story form, whether it's through poetry, memoir, a combination of such, or through, sort of a different kind of creative construct. And in this new book, with the subtitle Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible, I wanted to write about my depression because this book is all about people's mental health / mental illness, schizophrenia, postpartum, etc. The gamut almost, 50 of these people who are really powerful human beings, but regular Joes and Jills. But I wanted to write about my depression, and I was like, well, I've done the memoir thing, and I've done what can I do that will be impactful? And so I had this idea, I wanted to have this conversation with my depression, but kind of give it human qualities almost. So I call my depression Dwayne in this story, and Dwayne in this particular story is being a son of a bitch, and he's cajoling me, and he's calling me dummy, and he calls me his bitch, and sometimes he does call me that, like, less so, explicitly, but
sure.
Like, and so I, and I explain to the reader, because it's kind of conversation, and then exposition to the reader, saying, well, this is what's going down, and this is why Dwayne is being such a dick, and it's because I haven't been taking care of him, and we're not listening to the same music right now, and I'm not feeding him or taking him on walks like he likes.
Wow.
And this is what the deal is, and then he's kind of like, oh, remember when you used to do that? You used to self-harm a little bit as a kid. Why don't you start doing that again? Or remember how your dad took his life? Just do that. And I'm like, no. You're not an enemy. You're a friend. I know that we've been through this before. So what do we do? And by the way, there's a cute little moment where, like, I picked up smoking cigarettes again as a poor coping skill, and Dwayne really likes that. And in the story, I'm like, my kidneys and my heart, who want to remain nameless, for privacy purposes, say they're going to go on strike if I don't quit smoking.
Wow.
So that cute little moment, but I'm like, what do we do, bro? How do we deal with this? And we're like, well, maybe we go to couples counseling like we did last time. And maybe let's go for a run. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, hurry your ass up and get your running gear on. I'm like, yo, I got this. I'm doing this. He's like, put some music on. I'm like, what do you want to listen to? He's like, and I'm like, Coldplay. And he's like, oh man, that's my shit, dog. Like, put on some Viva La Vida. And then we just go out for a run, and that's kind of how the story ends, But I just want to show people that this is an ongoing thing,
Right,
and and you've got to be somewhat creative in how you, not necessarily with the writing, but how you deal and manage, and how you talk to yourself, and that you can two things. You have the opportunity to make anything that you're dealing with, demon or whatever. You have an opportunity to turn that enemy into a friend. And, that old saying, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And the other thing I want to show people, and it's not so explicit in the story, is that anything that you're dealing with, you can see it as a liability, and it may be on a certain level, but there's also the opportunity to see it as an asset, to make it part of your superhero cape, to say, I got this depression, man, I got this schizophrenia, but I can use that story to help somebody else, or I can use one of those, symptoms of being type A I can learn how to manage it and use it for good rather than to be super, obsessive compulsive about money or sex or anything really. So you can use that and turn it on its head and make it a friend rather than an enemy, and make it an asset instead of a liability.
Wow. It sounds like, because it's this ongoing thing, it's a daily thing, like personal development, like getting better at writing and doing it creatively, that you establish and create these good habits that facilitate a higher ability to manage mental health issues or even conquer them. And as you were describing that in my head, I was thinking like, how are these like hormone factories in our minds and the mind body connection? And I was wondering if, habits within health and fitness have supported you in kicking Dwayne to the curb, or at least, silencing him.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, it's, there's a few things. I mean, I'm learning right now to destroy the ego, as it were, because a lot of this shit, some of this shit is really like, I think I'm the center of the universe, and I forget that I'm here to help people, not to help myself.
Right.
And if I help other people, that shit'll come, but don't focus on that so much. But the physical lens, and because I hate running, I'm not, if I'm going to do some kind of exercise, it's going to be like basketball or hiking or something like that. I don't get as huge amount of an opportunity to do that because I'm in LA, and because, I've got kids now. I married in, my wife has kids, and so they're my kids now. And so there's an additional responsibility, which is great. It's fine. I enjoy it, but that means there's less time for Josh. And so what do? Well, now I'm picking up running again. I'm trying to make that as consistent as possible, doing some kind of a routine in the morning that has physical, attributes and also some mindfulness to it. Back into journaling, which is a combo of like physical and emotional, right?
Yep.
There's a few different things, and just putting that ego aside and saying, what, dog, it's not all about you. It's okay if you need to take a little medicine. It's okay if you gotta finally get that psychoval. It's okay if you gotta put down the drink for a little bit. It's okay, any of this stuff, because the most important thing is take care of you so you can take care of others.
Yeah, taking care of yourself is so important. And, me being blind, it's so tough to get out on my own and get to the gym or whatever. And I feel really comfortable in the gym, like when I'm set up, like at the squat rack or whatever. But, walking around the machines and, banging your head, it's only going to take banging your head on a piece of metal a couple times before, something bad happens. So I love to do, body weight fitness and exercises in my home, and just it's a time saver, right? Because it's real easy to bust out some body weight squats or some lunges and push-ups and sit-ups and get that blood going and get those juices flowing and those hormones pumping to make you feel good, make you feel better, and give you that energy boost you need to to manage the kids, manage the mental health, manage the day, and still get everything done. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. Do you, was nutrition and fitness always a part of your routines, or is that a habit that you struggled with?
It's kind of something I struggle with because I can eat whatever the hell I want, and for the most part, because I've got some crazy ass metabolism that the rest of my family doesn't have. And, so I should really be like 400 pounds. No judgment on that, of course, but I mean, just very unhealthy and not physically fit. So I actually went to the doctor semi recently, and the doctor was like, man, you got like a crazy pulse rate and your blood pressure's all weird, all jacked up. And I was like, really? I'm like, at good weight and all that stuff. So I had to like ditch, eating bacon every day and replace it with nasty ass beets. But that's been very helpful. And just knowing also that the physical activity, even though, I can be a bit of a recluse and isolate because that's somewhat of the nature of my work, and somewhat, even though I'm an extrovert, like I'm kind of, a bit of a recluse. And so I gotta push myself to do that physical activity and to add more and to kind of ease up to it. and to kind of make it work in a system for myself. Like I really appreciated the fact that you said, got to do it in my home, got to make it work on the fly, more or less, like playing to your strengths. Because that's something that I'm learning how to do as we speak. And, good little inspiration for me is to hear that from you. So yeah, it's not been an easy thing for me, but it's something that I've really got to push on and really remind myself why I'm doing it, and figure out some kind of mindfulness activity to get myself going in that direction.
Yeah, I think, whether it's physical fitness or mental fitness, or it's, working on our spiritual, journey or our business journey, we've got to figure out the balance on that stuff. And, I can totally relate, to the recluse or reclusivity, if you will, because my wife would bang on me for that, because, she would come home and it'd be like, I'd be in the house on days on end. Like light has not touched my skin in like 5 days. And she's like, you have got to get outside. So I've been better about, going and sitting out by the pool for, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And, if I need, I'll bring out my laptop down there, and, or, that's the time I'll follow up on social media and just, stay connected and make it a functional time. But man, even just the sun hitting your skin, you just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It just makes me feel better when it's kind of like a break from work too. So I come back and I'm ready to like get after it. So I don't know. Or where are you based at? Do you get any sun?
I try to. I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, as of the last 16 months. But, I'm in Phoenix today. Doing some conference stuff. So
what the hell, dude? You didn't tell me I would. At the time of this recording, my last episode was live. I recorded it last weekend with a buddy who was down in here in the Phoenix area for National Speakers Association. I'm off of 36th Street. But what event are you in for? The Infusionsoft, or what are you in town for?
Oh, I'm in for there's a big suicidology conference, the American Association of Suicidology. So wow. I did a little breakout session yesterday, and today I'm going to help introduce a speaker. And I'm kind of seeing some people that I see from afar and either haven't met in person, or some people who I want to catch up with, who I know. Yeah. So it's kind of a dual sort of purpose. And I got to fly out tonight back home, because I'm home. I mean, I'm away too damn much.
Sure. Yeah.
Probably like 100 days a year or something like that. So, the more I can get back home, the better. But, it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, so I was here yesterday as of like 9:20 in the morning, and I'm out as of like 7 tonight or something like that. So it was a real quick one. But I think I knew that you were either in Tucson or somewhere close by, but I have horrible sense of direction, and that's like, I need a GPS to find the bathroom in my own apartment. So I mean, that's just, the struggle is real.
That is a struggle. Strings maybe strings will lead you by, but no, that's fine. I had no idea that you were coming in. I look up to do this one day a week. When you book on my calendar, there's one day available. It's just, so I totally get, head down, hustling. But I loved the in-person interview so much. Like, it was just so much, it was so raw, real, unscripted. The conversation was so richly dense with information, and I don't know, I just really loved it. We were off the lobby of a hotel, and there's people going on in the background, there's music going on in the background. It was just, I don't know, I love that live nature. So that I'm really making a push to do that as intentionally as I can when people are in town. So
well, next time I'm in town, we'll have to get together,
dude. Word. So how important for you in your life, maybe your business, is our conferences and events? I mean, for me, they're really huge. I try to go to a couple events each year, and I'll be in Anaheim in August. I'm going to be in Florida for like 3 events in July, DC in June, and I'll be in Dallas in Memorial Day weekend. So how important are events for you?
Well, they're huge. I mean, the events are huge, and I would say 9, maybe more than 9 times out of 10, I'm the ones keynoting. So, I mean, they're good for, paying the bills and stuff like that. But beyond that, I mean, I get a chance to see people I wouldn't see, meet people I wouldn't meet, take somebody else's breakout session that I normally may not have taken, or a point of view I normally wouldn't have sought out because I'm in my own world or whatever it is. And then, and I would say maybe half the time I end up booking a little more business because of that, because of, doing the conference circuit or whatever. And then attending things like this where, I'm not getting paid, I'm going out of pocket. I put it kind of like this, the breakout session I did because we, partner and I put together this, journal, social work paper, whatever. But I came in with the focus of, let me be of service, let me be of help, and whatever happens, happens. And, there wasn't a lot of people that attended my session yesterday, which at first I was a little disappointed. I was like, you know what, dude, chill, do what you do and let the chips fall the way they may.
Yeah. And
I ended up meeting some really cool people in the room afterward, and I believe at least one of them I'll be able to help. Maybe we'll do a little business together. I might do a little volunteer work for them, whatever it is. But so in that sense, instead of there are times when it's appropriate to prospect for business, of course. But this one, I initially set in for that, and I kind of changed focus when I got here because it just felt like the right moment and the right thing to do. So conferences are big, I think.
Well, I mean, being of service is so important. When I was in Chicago in March, delivering a presentation at the American Bar Association Tech Show, and I was so disappointed that our presentation, my team's presentation, it was low attendance, but I just tried to maintain that mindset of just, being of service, providing value, even if it's for just a handful of people, that it can really make the difference for them. And, by doing that too, in the networking opportunities and conversations, just trying to put forth value and service to other people, we made some amazingly powerful connections. And, and when you show up like that, when you have that mindset, that place of where you're coming from to just help other people, it's so crazy how the universe opens up doors for you to meet the right people. And even though the almost no people are in your presentation.
Right. It's like this idea that I heard from somebody else, and I kind of adopted it. Treat every single time you go out, do anything, like it's the first time this person or people have seen you before. Like this is the first time, and it might be the only time. So how does that affect what you do? Because if they see this morose, sort of like pissed off, nobody, then it's all about you anyway. And any interaction, if make it business, relationship, whatever, it really kind of is about the other person.
Yep.
More so in business. I mean, explicitly for sure. Otherwise it's a quick buck, and you're gonna fall flat on your face sooner than later. Yeah, it's so interesting how things open up when you take on a different mindset, the service oriented thing for sure.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, because you're doing a lot of this traveling for the speaking, which in itself is, you're literally stepping on stage to give as much as you possibly can within a given time frame that's going to resonate with the audience. It's got to be the right message for the right group of people, and event organizers are looking for that person who can deliver that content that people are going to walk away from feeling enriched or feeling motivated or feeling learned with the value and the content that the speakers are bringing, the presenters are bringing. And do you feel that it's been your story that has really helped you become that? What do you think that it is that you're doing or have done, or where you've come from, that really kind of got you on that circuit? Because it hasn't been that long, correct?
About 6 years.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I guess in the grand scheme, it's definitely not. I mean, there's people who I look up to, who've been around longer, and sort of in a just a matter of fact way, as far as like number of engagements and what I believe, I think as far as revenue, I've either caught up to them or even surpassed them a bit. But I think what's done well for me is the story, and it's the delivery, and just kind of covering things in a different way. When I see somebody speak, I want to be entertained, I want to be engaged, and I want to learn something. And I feel that when a lot of times people speak, beyond the not being prepared, which I see enough of that too, you might have one of those three: either entertained, engaged, you learn something. It's more rare to have two, and it's like a unicorn if you have three. And just playing to my strengths and being matter of fact, and knowing that I am not the sole proprietor, the sole person for my success. It takes a village.
Sure.
That I have all three, and I do well with all three. Entertain, engage, inform, and I think that's what people like. And even when there's like some 3-time PhD in the room who's figured out a way to cure syphilis or whatever, I don't know, like, they're so super accomplished. Like, I think I can put things in a way where even they'll see something in a different light. And then just try to be super helpful. Like if I'm setting up and they can't figure out the sound or whatever, like I'm actively helping rearrange the room. And if I can help break down, I bought, the sound person was like bugging out the other day at community college I was doing, and she's like, I haven't had caffeine, and da. And I was like, whoa, I was like, and so I was chatting with her a bit, and then I was like, well, you haven't had caffeine yet. Where do I find to get coffee? She's like, you don't have to get me coffee. I was like, I don't have to, but I want to. And she's going to have no effect on me coming back there or whatever. But I was like, you know what? Hey, this might work out. Who cares? Let her have a better day. If the coffee's going to help. So I got her some coffee, and we ended up having a great time, and she worked it out while I was gone for 10 minutes. So that kind of shit, just really trying to give of myself, and not just being on stage and asking, in advance, asking for the green M&Ms and making sure there's a foot bath for me after I get off stage. Like, who gives a shit, I'll figure that out on my own.
Oh, I do. Every time I speak, I demand red M&Ms and 2 people to wash my feet.
How would you even know, bro? I'm sorry, that was terrible.
No, I'm totally kidding. Yeah, it's not.
I know you.
Yeah. So, I wish that I could know by taste, but M&Ms all taste the same, like chocolatey goodness. So. Yeah. But yeah, man. So the reason why I was wondering what really worked for you, I had a feeling that it was your story. But it sounds like, just like mental health, physical health, and our whole experience, our lives, our journey, it is a holistic viewpoint. So you probably got a good promo video. You've got a great story, which they learned from with the promo video. When you show up, you're prepared, you're practiced, you're refined, you're hitting on the engage, the entertain, and the learned, dropping valuable information. But when you're forgot what I was saying. So, but your story with this whole history of suicide, and then hardship, and then when shit hits the fan and it just kind of hits you all at once, talk to us a little bit about that 18-month span really quick. What happened? Just 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, sure. So I lost my dad to suicide, March 31, 2009. And almost immediately, so my thought process was a whole mix of emotions, sad, angry, relieved, if you can believe that, because there was just a bad relationship for the most part, mourning the fact that, things could never get better between us. And even now, he doesn't never get to meet my kids, my wife, etc. But that 18-month period, almost right after that, happened with the lawsuit and taking us to court. My mom took my sister, brother, and I to court, more or less, and that was hard on me, I think, for the most of all the kids, because I probably added a little fuel to the fire myself. And then I kind of took this little road trip on my own out west from Portland to Vancouver and back down, kind of clearing my head. And I started kind of journaling right away. And then I got into this one-person show writing class, and I started formulating that, learning about myself, my dad, the creative writing process in a little more of a refined way. Just got back into school.
Didn't your girlfriend leave you? Your longtime girlfriend leave you too? On top of it,
that would be almost a year later.
Mm-hmm.
But I made an effort to use that money that I got from my dad to kind of create a new life for myself, and rather than blow it or whatever. So I did a pretty good job with that. And at this point, I've gotten something like a 6,000 return percent or something like that because of the different things I chose to do with it.
Beautiful.
And then developed that show through the end of 2009 and into the beginning of 2010. Did a workshop, ended up getting accepted into a festival in New York City, got a chance to do that. Was, just kind of swimming through life without kind of knowing what the hell I was doing, not managing myself or anything really properly. I was in the relationship I was in with my then girlfriend now, wasn't a really healthy one, and I wasn't making good decisions in regards to her or being a good partner. And what
was the blind spot there? What weren't you seeing?
I was with her from 20 up until 26, and it's what I still deal with today, but I think I've got a better handle on. It's the fucking ego, man. Like, I'm the center of the universe, and if I don't get what I want, then screw you, and I'll figure out a way to check out, and and all that, and I've gotten light years better at that. It's still an ongoing thing, but I think at that point I was incredibly immature, and just was not. Just not a good partner, not kind, not understanding. And even though I was dealing with my own shit, I mean, that doesn't mean that she wasn't dealing with her own stuff either. And I was, I had a much lower self-esteem than I do now. And wasn't really helping other people. So that wasn't contributing either. And because, I thought, well, what am I going to do without her? Am I going to be alone? Can I make it financially without her? That kind of stuff. And I could have. I just had, the confidence wasn't there. So I got a chance to do this play, this one-man show in New York City that, shades of my father and my relationship with him, and et cetera, and suicide at the end, largely a comedy. Got a chance, got invited to do Out of Town, et cetera, et cetera. Professional life was taking off. And then end of 2010 into beginning of 2011, personal life was taking a nosedive. Girlfriend broke up with me pretty much on our 6-year anniversary. And almost within 6 weeks, she started seeing somebody else, which is kind of another dagger in the heart and in the back, whatever, because even though it wasn't a good relationship, it was like, well, shit, that was quick.
Right. 6 years. That? Yeah. 6 years. Really quick.
Yeah. And then to avoid all these problems, I mean, I was just drinking and drugging a little bit, but it was really like taking on more work up to the point where I was working like 90 hours a week doing different things, which is incredibly unhealthy. And then beginning of 2011, I started, I believe I'd been living with depression my entire life, though I didn't know it at the time. So these symptoms I never knew how to deal with just exacerbated the point where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I would cry all the time, couldn't go anywhere, do anything. And my work, dwindled down for various reasons to about 10, 15 hours a week, whatever. And some of it has to do with the way that show business works in the beginning of every year. And some of it had to do with screwing up and whatever. And so, so in that 6-week period in early 2011, I started thinking about suicide weekly, daily, hourly, by the minute, till I was hanging out of my 4th floor window. And then thankfully, I had some clarity to get help and to realize I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to feel that way. And from my mom, I got help. And then I was back in school at this point as of, 2010, 2011, taking a few classes. So I was able to get in my college's counseling center. I started journaling. I started researching. I got into sort of this neuroscience course beyond the scope of what I was doing in college. So I was like trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. Am I going to be a crossing guard? I needed to help people. So I was like, maybe I'll be a life coach or something. So I took this like human capital management, life coaching, executive coaching series of courses at NYU, New York University, and learned a hell of a lot about myself through that, and about life, about reframing and stuff like that. And then I had this idea, I was going to quit show business because I thought it was the root of all my problems, and it was, partially depression. Stop enjoying doing the things you once enjoyed when you're having a depressive episode. And after a 4-week retirement, I put the back on, as it were, and I had this idea that I was going to take this one-person show that I had and condense it and put some education on the back end, which I had to get training for and make sure I was speaking safely and stuff like that, and then do this Q&A at the end as well. And that ended up being my first program that kind of launched my speaking career, but I didn't know how it was going to go. And I got a chance to do it at Baruch College, middle of May 2011. And, the lights are on. I could hear people chewing gum. Somebody was picking their nose. There wasn't a ton of people in the room. And, in theater, the lights are out,
Right.
And you don't see all these people or whatever. And I was just kind of at a loss. And there was a young man at the end that came up to me and said, he waited for everyone to leave. And he said, thanks for doing this, man. I've been depressed for as long as I can remember, and been thinking about suicide the last maybe couple weeks or whatever. And I thought that was just kind of a normal thing. And, he didn't want to live like that, but he thought it was normal. And now he knew that it wasn't, because he saw what I did, and he was going to go get help at the counseling center. And in my head, I was like, holy shit, man, if I had to go through all this to help this one dude, it was worth it. It was worth it. And then from there, I kind of cultivated, different, marketing methods and pitching and this and that. And from there, the first semester of the next year, I booked like 4 engagements, and the next semester I booked like 17. And then the next year it snowballed to like 30, and then 50, then 60. And at this point, I think, 60, 70, something like that, something around that amount. And, there's books and mental health curriculum, and, I met my wife because of my first book, my memoir, and that was one of the best moves I've ever made, writing the book and then sending it to her, because she works in the field as well. And so, life isn't perfect by any means, far from it. I've got a lot to learn and a lot to give, but I think what I want people to know is that just keep putting in the effort, and life is made up of small moments. And I got to remind that of, to myself, because I'm type A, and I want things to happen yesterday. But I got to remind myself, don't push too hard. Don't pull too hard. Be focused. Set those goals, but be willing to have it look like something else if you're really, truly being honest with yourself and really pushing towards being in service and helping other people. So,
well, I mean, we have these like experiences, these instances in our lives that like really kind of like hold us down. And when you had mentioned your coaching and working on like the reframing, and I was like, holy shit, like I wonder how he did this. So, when you were a kid, like, I remember, a situation very similar, but when you were a kid, I think you were like 11 or 12 or something in middle school. Your mom had like pulled you aside, or you and your siblings aside, and said, "Hey, like, your dad's dad, killed himself." And, I imagine that there was probably a reason that she would tell you that, like maybe it was some detachment between you and your father, or your father and his children. But can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. The memory is vivid but vague. And I remember that my mom, and I have a brother too who's like 5 years younger, so he would have been around 6, 7, not quite 8. And I was 12 or so. My sister was 13, and my mom pulled us aside. And I don't remember the context for it, to be honest, but I do remember that she was like, your dad's father killed himself. He took his life. And that was kind of it. She was just like, don't tell your dad, because he'll be very upset. He basically forbade me to tell anybody, to ever talk about it. And I believe he only spoke about it once or twice with her, and it was very brief. And but if I can kind of maybe translate why she did that, well, there was a few reasons. I mean, one, he had a picture of his father above his desk. And I would ask him about his father from time to time, and he grew very uncomfortable, and he usually tried to change the subject. But I was like, well, how did he die? What happened? And he was like, well, he died from shrapnel from World War II. And I found out that, World War II ended in 1944. He was in World War II. I found some interesting stuff about him as an adult, much, much later. But that he died in 1966. So there's no way you're having a 22-year battle with shrapnel. Like,
the struggle is real.
Yeah. I'm like, the shrapnel turned into like a gremlin or something. I don't even know, but like, it just didn't make sense. It's like, dog, like what? So I was like 10, 11 when I started to really kind of put some pieces together and whatnot. And also I think she was quite possibly trying to put some context for why he was such a huge asshole.
Yeah.
He was not kind to her. He was certainly not kind to us, mostly my sister and I, but there was some stuff too, but he was the baby and my dad kind of evened out a little bit by then. But I think she was possibly trying to give some context as to why he was the way he was and trying to soften that blow a little bit. But there was never anything about coping or hope or healing or anything like that. I think it was some veiled attempt, possibly some good motives there to say, hey, this is why your dad is who he is and this is what he's been dealing with. But that was kind of it. And it wasn't a long conversation.
So, I mean, did you ever become close with your father before he passed away? And if not, was that a large source of the depression?
I don't believe it was a large source of the depression. I think the depression in and of itself was always there, and I wasn't quite sure how to manage it. But the depressive episode that I dealt with, a major one, was, the breakup, everyone else is succeeding but me. My mom doesn't love me. My dad doesn't love me. I was isolating. I stopped taking care of myself, and it just kind of progressed further and further and further. And I wasn't taking care of myself. But as far as like the mourning for my father and that kind of stuff, we didn't really get close per se, but I know that when he was breaking up, when my mom was breaking up with him and that was all going down, I tried to be supportive as possible, and there was this element of like he started calling me a little more, and part of me was like, well, man, now that you have nobody,
right,
and now you want to be my friends, well, screw you, but there was also the element of like, well, I'll take this on and I'll do what I can. So I did suggest, even though I had never been in therapy or group or anything like that, it was like, well, you need to get in some counseling or something because this is not going well. And then for his birthday, the birthday before he died, which is in January, and he died a couple months later, he was all alone, and more or less he was at his house. And throughout my 12 to 19, I was basically the family lumberjack, and he was kind of cheap and didn't want to pay for heat, so I heated the home myself with chopping down trees and sawing them down. I wasn't allowed to use a chainsaw.
Wow.
But I hadn't had to do that. I was 25. I hadn't had to do that in like 6 years, and he had thrown out he had torn both of his rotator cuffs, and so he couldn't do that for himself anymore. So for his birthday, I came to his house. It's a couple hours away from New York City or whatever, and he was living in Jersey, and I chopped like a month's worth of firewood for him. That day I worked a couple hours, and I was like, most people like jump out of their planes out of planes with their son on the 60th birthday, and I'm chopping friggin' firewood, but okay, fine, and I'll do it. So there's a little begrudging element to that, but I still wanted to help him and whatever. And that was the last time I saw him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, the last time you saw him was on his birthday when you were just there to show up in service for him to chop wood. Yeah, and there's one of the ways that I was dealing with some of the stuff that I was going through was with comedy, and it sounded like you did that too. But did therapy, coming into the picture, did that end up helping you at all? And if so, when did that happen?
Well, comedy definitely helped, by the way. Comedy is pretty much how I deal with things that aren't going well and things that are bad. I mean, even if I'm in pain and like crying and stuff like that, there's always got to be some element of humor to what's going on. I mean, I even remember, and this was more like, I think it was my mom who brought this up, but like we just bawled, like laughing. after my father passed away, we were all broke. We had no money and stuff. And we were trying to figure out how to pay for whatever we were going to do for him or whatever. And my mom's like, we were looking through this catalog of coffins or whatever at the funeral home. And my mom was like, look at these baby coffins. They're like less than half of the cost of like regular coffins. Maybe we can fold them up and put them inside.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then of course, like creating the one person show. I mean, it's largely a comedy, you know, that was kind of how I had to do that.
Right.
But therapy didn't really come into play until after I was in crisis. So like a little after age 27, almost a little more than 2 years after he passed away.
Yeah.
And that was so helpful. It was just, you know, somebody across from me helping me help myself become a better person, teaching me coping skills, helping me find insights. Counseling therapy was one of the best decisions, and I still have one. It's a different person because I'm not in school any longer, but it's been really productive and really helpful for me to get out of my head, tell my story, talk about what I need to talk about in a safe and confidential context.
Yeah, counseling seems to be, you know, I guess like the coaching that you can file an insurance claim on, right? Like, you know, do you, so you still do therapy? Do you do coaching and masterminding on top of that too?
A little bit. I don't sell it publicly. I will sometimes get away, you know, and I don't even, you know, sometimes I don't even tell people, like they come at me for whatever kind of advice or whatever, and I just offer it, you know, and I could charge a good chunk of money for it. And there's a few people I take on as clients to do that kind of stuff if they want something really, really extensive or in depth. And so it's a lot of times it takes the form of like more like business coaching and, you know, that kind of a thing. But it's such a holistic thing, you know, anything that we do in life. And so there's elements of like lifestyle design in there, you know, what's happening at home with a divorce or something. Like I'll take that on if somebody wants to talk about what's going on with their business or how they build and stuff like that. Or like there's a friend of mine who is looking to build a speaking career. And that person also has children at home. And I'm like, well, I just married into children and I know how difficult it is. So think about how you want to design this, you know, before we actually dive into how you're going to make this work. Think about what that's going to look like. Is it as many gigs as I do, like, you know, 70, 60 a year? What can you handle? What can your family handle? That kind of a deal, which is so important because if you start doing some career and you're good at it, you know, let's say, and your lifestyle can't support it, that's going to crash and burn at some point, or that's going to make you crash and burn at some point. So I do a lot of that. And like I said, sometimes it's mentorship. Sometimes it's, I just give it away because life isn't all about money. And then if it's really, really in depth and they want extensive help, you know, I'll do that. You know, there was a time when I was really working hard to try to sell that stuff, and there may be a time where that comes again, but for right now, I mean, it's kind of a mixture of volunteer giving away and then, you know, a little bit of paid work as well.
I meant coaching for you. Like if you have like you know, blind spots in your own business or in your life that therapy doesn't address, you know, are you in a coach or are you getting coaching, or are you in a mastermind to get that kind of group coaching?
Not a mastermind, but I have gotten coaching in the past, and there's a group or a group of people that I belong to, or that not I belong to, but that I regularly meet with, that become more of like a mastermind, and there is a coaching element to it as well, which has been really, really helpful. So without them calling it coaching, well, sometimes they do. Sometimes my coach or my mentor will refer to it as such. And so, yeah, it's been hella helpful because I can't see all my blind spots. You know, sometimes I don't even know I have blind spots, you know, and it takes somebody to point that out and say, you know, you're doing this, or, you know, that's not helpful, or think about that a little more. And what does that mean to you, kind of stuff, or whatever, you know, asking open-ended thinking questions, stuff like that. We all need support. We all need support. Therapy, beyond therapy. Yeah, it's that kind of work has been huge in my life.
Yeah, you know, I haven't gotten any kind of, you know, psychiatric therapy over an extended period of time in any like recent setting, but the advancements that I've had with a coach and with mastermind groups, I'm in 2 mastermind groups, has been so phenomenal. But I wonder how, while analogous, while different, I wonder how, in what areas might just talking with a therapist, help me, with my life, managing the balance, the cyclical, episodic expressions of depression, or a deficient, I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, a deficiency in mental health. But when someone is, or do you find that there is this kind of stigma against getting psychological or psychiatric help from a professional?
Oh yeah, there's a huge stigma around it because.
Oh, Josh, I think we lost you, buddy.
Oh, can you hear me?
There we go. Yep. You were saying there's a huge stigma around it?
Yeah, there's a huge stigma around it. I think there's a lack of conversation around it, and there's a lot of archaic thinking about it. And so a lot of the times folks will think automatically crazy, loony bin, it's going to go on my record, I'll be undateable, nobody will believe me, they think I just want attention, my employer's going to find out, and none of that's true.
I was going to say that's all true. That sounds all true to me.
Yeah. But that's what you hear a lot, dude. That's what you hear a lot. It's wild. And I like to juxtapose it and put it against physical health. You would see a physician, a professional, you may be a coach, for kidney disease, heart disease, why not for your brain?
Right.
There's not some magical line on your neck that says below that is your body and above that is some magical funny thing that we can't talk about. Your brain is part of your body. I like to call it, a nice engine, a piece of machinery, a Rolls Royce, a Maserati. I do not care what you drive, a Geo Metro, but whatever it is, you got to tune it up every 3,000 miles. And that's what therapy is for me. It's a tune up. It's even if I'm not having an episode, even if you're not living with a mental illness or condition, it's just a way to kind of repose certain things. And even there's students and people that I speak with who they're saying, well, my so-and-so cousin, uncle, brother is depressed or suicidal. They're not getting help. Well, what do I do? I'll give them some things to do, how to kind of put it in different ways. I'm like, by the way, you also need to be in therapy yourself. And here's why. You need to support yourself. You need to practice self-care. You can't take on everybody's problems and not have that affect you. It's going to affect you, of course. And that therapist might help you have some aha moments or even lead you in the direction of how you can be the best support for that person, for that person in crisis or who's not getting help. And so I think I know that you don't need a diagnosis or anything to go see a therapist. It's something, if you're in college or something, usually you can make an appointment, walk in, close to free or free. If you're on the Affordable Care Act, there's a provision for mental health. And so depending on the size of your plan or whatever is going to be, the size of your copay. I pay $22 a session rather than $200 because of my insurance plan. So it's pretty amazing. It's a nice little discount other than the crazy premiums that I'm paying, but that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, man, there's a huge stigma around it. And that's one of the reasons why I talk, because I'm like, going down the street, you wouldn't think I'm dealing with that. I look like whatever normal means, I guess I look normal. I've got, a good job. I make a pretty good living. My wife's pretty hot and super smart and like an amazing person. And my kids are cool and smart. And you just think I'm well adjusted and all that, but you wouldn't know what the hell I'm dealing with inside. And then, so I have to, and then if I talk about it, but with no context, you're like, well, that dude is crazy as whatever. And I'm
sure,
but I get to define myself and tell my story first. Like, Tanner, you're not just some blind guy. You're not just some dude, with a podcast, you've got so much more going on than that.
Right.
And you get to define yourself and tell your story before somebody else does. So that's a big reason why I talk, because we need to stop thinking about this stuff in terms of crazy and think about it in terms of lifestyle design and supporting and being our best selves, and and just working through the curveballs that life throws us.
Well, there is no question why you keep getting asked back to speak, referrals driving a lot of your speaking business. But man, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Josh. I think that we could keep talking, and we should probably have you back on so we can really, maybe dissect and address some mental health stuff where people can, with some tips and tactics and strategies that you use to help you get through it. But until then, if they want to get a hold of stuff like that right now, or if they want to start taking steps right now, what's the best place to connect with you, my man?
You can do, I'm always happy to give out my email. It's josh@iampossibleproject.com, josh@iampossibleproject.com. On the Instagram, on the gram, it's We Are Possible. That's we, the letter R, possible. Facebook is just josh.rivedal. All my social media links, I think, are on my website. I just got it redone, so there's some stuff I got to iron out. But the website is also www.iampossibleproject.com.
Beautiful, man. I love how you're living it. You're not letting your BS, you're not letting your bullshit hold you back, and doing what you can right now and every day to shed more light on your blind spots so you can live a more authentic self. Because I am possible, motherfucker. Thanks so much, Josh. I really appreciate you coming on, bro.
Thanks, Tanner. Appreciate it, brother.
You remember when you were a kid and that one person you looked up to gave you a compliment? The best compliment you can give me right now is by sharing this. I look up to you, and it would mean the world to me if you would share this right now.